right now we want to get into the legal implications of it. Not only the legal implications, but also I like how Melissa, before we came on air during commercial break, she was talking about, talking with the family. Not only the what do you call them, a borrower, John?
Borrower.
Not only the borrower, but the heirs.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's really critically important to talk not only to the owner who will serve as a life tenant there and have the stream of income that's offered under the reverse mortgage, but also to have conversations with the family to make sure that they are properly planning what could or could not happen relative to that asset, because fundamentally the goal of the reverse mortgage is for the equity to be paid throughout the borrower's lifetime in a stream of income of payments, which means essentially at the end of that lifetime or the end of the loan, there really won't be any equity to speak of. Mm-hmm. Now, certainly the market could be outpacing it. There may still be appreciation available to the family, but if the family is planning to keep that property, then a reverse mortgage may not be the right avenue for them for financing. Most of the cases that we experience where a reverse mortgage is most advantageous is where there is no family, or where the family has no intention of retaining ownership of that home. Once the person passes away, they're just going to sell it, or in some instances let it go to foreclosure, because sometimes the equity has been taken out at such a rate that the market no longer allows for there to be any sale, and it ends up transferring into either a short sale or potential foreclosure.
Yeah, exactly. So short sale, by the way, if you owe $250, you can only get $225 for it. The bank will most of the time allow you to sell it and forgive that extra. And then foreclosure is just totally, letting the bank take it.
Yes. And we have had successful experiences completing short sales for reverse mortgage homes. Mm-hmm. The difficulty there is that if the homeowner or borrower owned the property on their own as an individual, now it requires the need for a probate to be opened. There's a lot of costs and time associated with that usually now the family has to bear in order to proceed with the short sale, which sometimes just does not make good sense.
No.
Hence the foreclosure.
So all of this should definitely be discussed way ahead of time, right before you get into it.
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of expenses associated with obtaining a reverse mortgage. So, the typical one size does not fit all is what needs to be analyzed with a professional like Semper Home Loans, who specializes, I think you specialize, all of my experience has been specialized in reverse mortgages to ensure that this is the best fit for the circumstances. Proper planning really is really so important in all aspects.
Yeah, I would say so. You never want to kind of be blindsided, especially with something like this, especially if you have some kids or even grandkids that, really wanted to take that home over, and that could take it over at some point, or if the, so you got to look into it. Again, it's not practical for everybody. And some of the fees we were going to talk about later on in the show if the time allotted. But I know, Melissa, you had a story that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah. A lot of times the best educational tools are real-world experiences. And
I agree.
This story or circumstance that I'm dealing with right now is a live file in my office and really underscores the importance of proper planning and ensuring that you're working with the proper professionals as early as possible. Mm-hmm. So what happened in this particular situation is I took a client on, it was less than 2 weeks ago now. The clients were already under agreement. Mother and father own the property, as is often the case. They added their children to the title because they wanted to avoid there being any need for probate. And, this is, again, a very common strategy, which as a cautionary tale, I would always make sure that you're talking with an elder care attorney about, getting any kind of subsidy or Medicaid. That sometimes can be a problem depending on when you're transferring ownership. So I'm always very cautious before just doing a quick claim deed, which is how it's often asked. Honestly, weekly, I get calls, I want to add my child to title, or, I want to take over my dad's property. And there's a lot of implications that need to be considered. It's not as simple as just signing on the dotted line. No. While it can be done quickly, it may not be effective to accomplish those goals, which is why proper guidance is really important. Mm-hmm. So anyway, back to the current clients. The mother and father added their children to the title, and at the time, the father went into a nursing home. He signed a power of attorney. Now, this nursing home provided the power of attorney form, which we see quite often. Nursing homes are trying to be helpful, but unfortunately, the power of attorney was not durable. Durable means that even if the person signing it lacks capacity down the road, the person who has the appointed power can sign anyway.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, what's happened is that it's been discovered that the father is now suffering with dementia and has an Alzheimer's diagnosis. So at this point, since the power of attorney is not durable, the family who has the power of attorney is not going to be able to use it for purposes of signing and transferring ownership of the property. So now I come on the scene with this unfortunate news 2 weeks before closing, and now we're in a situation where we've had to obtain a guardianship appointment. So I actually just filed the guardianship appointments today with the probate court, and we'll be waiting for our hearing, which is set to take place in September. So now we're dealing with having to wait for the probate court hearing schedule so that the family can take over the guardianship on behalf of the father in order to move forward with completing the real estate closing, just creating more delays for the buyers, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, and that's, of course, that's a separate story from reverse mortgages, but this just goes to show you in any kind of capacity of real estate, there's so many moving parts. There's so much stuff that you just can't guess is going to happen. And it always happens. Something with every file always happens. And then, some of our clients, and, you can't blame them for feeling this, but they feel that sometimes they're like, what's going on? Why didn't you tell me? Well, there's millions of things that could happen.
There are so many problems with this particular file. The guardianship is the biggest problem. However, as is often the case, mom and dad took out a mortgage or a line of credit a long time ago. Everybody remembers Old Stone Bank. Well, unfortunately, we have a missing discharge from an old bank. It's fortunate that the mother actually kept very good records and we were able to find the original. So that's a non-issue. But, and unusual to have that resolved so easily. But we also have a child who was added to title who's a non-resident. So we have a non-resident complication. So this particular transaction has kind of a law school garden variety host of issues that we've had to overcome. But the guardianship has really been the biggest snag and caused the most delays. So it really is critically important to have, I think, professional representation as early on in the process as you can, perhaps even when you're contemplating selling real estate, especially when you're dealing with these complex issues of elder care and what's entailed with that.
We work sometimes with folks, 2, 3, 4 years before they're even ready. I've been working with folks since when I started in real estate, and they're still not ready to pull the trigger. But guess what? These guys are so well informed. All of their ducks are in a row. And talk about one of the smoothest transactions you're going to have. If you have all the information up front, if you're meeting with the right professionals, getting it all done, it's going to be a lot smooth. There's always going to be a bump or two in the road. There's always something, but it's always going to be a lot smoother getting all of your facts straight.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the story, Melissa.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to overcome all the hurdles, which often is the case. But had we talked sooner, we probably would have had all of that streamlined so that we weren't facing any kinds of closing delays. So that's the moral of the story.
That's great. And if you need any kind of, real estate legal representation, title and closings, all of that, Melissa Delena's office takes care of that. They're phenomenal. They're right centrally located in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and you even go out to closings as well, all over the state and in Massachusetts too, right?
Yes. Yeah, we serve Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
That's great. And you can get all of her contact information on theroundtableradio.com.